Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English After Hours. I'm Steph.
And I'm Tim. Steph, I have to ask, did you hear that street musician playing violin outside the coffee shop this morning? I was completely mesmerized. I actually stopped walking and just stood there listening for 10 minutes, which made me late for work, but it was absolutely worth it.
No, I must have missed that. What made the performance so captivating?
The musician was playing classical pieces, but with this incredible jazz improvisation mixed in. It was like hearing familiar melodies transformed into something completely new and unexpected. And there was this little crowd of people gathered around, all completely silent and absorbed in the music.
That sounds magical. There's something about live street art that can be even more moving than formal performances in concert halls. The spontaneity and accessibility of it just hits differently.
Exactly. It reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. When I was younger, I used to play guitar, though I was never very skilled. But watching this musician made me think about picking it up again.
You played guitar? I had no idea. What style of music did you enjoy playing?
Mostly folk and classic rock songs. Nothing fancy, just strumming chords and singing along. It was my way of relaxing after studying. I wasn't creative enough to write original music, but I loved learning songs from artists I admired.
That's still a form of creativity. Interpreting existing music and making it your own is definitely artistic expression. Actually, your story reminds me of something that happened last weekend. I was visiting this small gallery downtown, and there was a painting that stopped me in my tracks.
What was it about the painting that affected you so strongly?
It was a simple landscape, just a field with trees and sky, but something about the artist's use of color and brushstrokes made me feel like I was actually standing in that peaceful place. I spent probably 20 minutes just looking at it, trying to understand how the artist created that emotional response.
Art has that incredible power to transport us, doesn't it? Whether it's music, visual art, literature, or any other creative medium.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is how personal and subjective artistic appreciation can be. The painting that moved me might not affect someone else the same way, and that's what makes discussing art so interesting.
That's such a good point. Art and creativity are also important topics for English learners because they involve expressing personal opinions, describing aesthetic experiences, and discussing cultural differences.
And for IELTS students especially, art and culture topics come up frequently in speaking tests. Being able to talk about creative experiences, artistic preferences, and cultural activities is really valuable.
Plus, creativity vocabulary is useful for describing hobbies, cultural events, and personal interests that make conversations more engaging and personal.
I think our artistic encounters this week show perfectly why creativity vocabulary is both practical and enriching.
I completely agree. Today's lesson is all about expanding our ability to discuss and appreciate the creative world around us.
Before we explore art and creativity vocabulary, please remember to subscribe to English After Hours, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up.
And remember, we upload new English lessons every single day. Make sure you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Today, we're covering essential vocabulary for talking about different art forms and creative expression, describing artistic techniques and creative processes, discussing cultural events and artistic experiences, and expressing personal preferences and opinions about art and creativity.
That's right. Whether you're visiting museums and galleries, discussing creative hobbies, describing cultural events, or preparing for IELTS speaking questions about art and culture, this vocabulary is essential for expressing yourself clearly and thoughtfully.
You'll use this vocabulary when talking about creative hobbies, visiting cultural attractions, describing artistic experiences, discussing entertainment preferences, and expressing opinions about aesthetic and cultural topics.
Since I appreciate music and traditional art forms while Steph enjoys visual arts and creative writing, we can explore different types of artistic expression and creative appreciation.
Let's start by talking about different art forms and creative expression.
Steph, your gallery experience sounds wonderful. Can you help our viewers understand the different categories of visual art they might encounter?
Of course, visual arts include painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, and printmaking. Paintings can be created with oils, watercolors, or acrylics, and they might be realistic, abstract, or impressionistic in style.
What about different painting subjects and themes?
Common subjects include landscapes, portraits, still life compositions, and abstract designs. Some artists focus on historical or religious themes, while others create contemporary social commentary or purely decorative works.
Are there different ways to categorize artistic styles?
Art can be categorized by time period, like Renaissance, Baroque, or modern art, or by style characteristics like realism, impressionism, or cubism. Each movement has distinctive techniques and philosophical approaches to representing the world.
Your explanation makes art seem more accessible and understandable. What about other creative disciplines like music? Music includes many different genres: classical, jazz, rock, pop, folk, country, hip-hop, electronic, and world music from various cultures.
How do you describe different musical elements and techniques?
Music has melody, which is the main tune, harmony, which are supporting chords, rhythm, which is beat and timing, and dynamics, which is volume and intensity. Musicians might improvise or follow written compositions, and performances can be solo or ensemble.
Musical instruments are typically categorized as strings, winds, brass, percussion, or electronic, and different combinations create different sounds and moods.
That street musician you heard was combining classical technique with jazz improvisation, which creates interesting fusion styles.
Exactly. Modern artists often blend traditional techniques with contemporary innovations to create new forms of expression.
Now, let's learn essential vocabulary for different art forms and creative media.
Visual arts, painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, printmaking, ceramics, textiles, digital art, installation art.
Performing arts, music, dance, theater, opera, ballet, concerts, recitals, performances, live shows.
Literary arts, poetry, novels, short stories, plays, essays, journalism, creative writing, storytelling, spoken word.
Let's practice describing different art forms and creative activities. This vocabulary is useful for IELTS speaking tasks about hobbies, culture, and personal interests.
What types of art or creative activities do you find most appealing and why?
I'm drawn to music because it's immediate and emotional. When I hear a well-performed song, it can instantly change my mood or bring back memories. I also appreciate that music is collaborative. Musicians work together to create something beautiful.
Do you enjoy any particular musical genres or styles?
I especially enjoy folk music because of its storytelling tradition, and classical music for its complexity and emotional depth. Jazz appeals to me because of the improvisation and creativity involved in live performance. I'm also interested in how music reflects different cultures and historical periods. Traditional music can teach you about a society's values and experiences.
Those are thoughtful observations about music's cultural significance. What about visual arts? Do any forms interest you?
I appreciate photography, especially landscape and documentary photography that captures real moments or beautiful natural scenes. I find abstract art more challenging to understand, but I'm trying to be more open-minded about different artistic expressions.
What creative activities do you find most engaging? I love visual arts, particularly painting and drawing, because they allow for personal interpretation and emotional expression. I'm fascinated by how artists use color, composition, and technique to convey feelings and ideas.
Do you have experience creating art yourself, or do you primarily appreciate others' work?
I do some sketching and watercolor painting as hobbies, though I'm certainly not professional level. Creating art helps me understand and appreciate artists' skills and creative processes better. I also enjoy literary arts, reading poetry, attending poetry readings, and experimenting with creative writing. There's something powerful about how language can create imagery and emotion.
Now, let's learn vocabulary for describing artistic techniques and creative processes.
Artistic techniques: brushstrokes, color palette, composition, perspective, shading, texture, contrast, balance, proportion.
Creative processes: Inspiration, brainstorming, sketching, drafting, revising, experimenting, developing ideas, artistic vision, creative expression.
Artistic qualities: original, creative, innovative, traditional, contemporary, skillful, expressive, meaningful, beautiful, provocative.
Let's practice describing artworks and creative processes. This type of description is common in IELTS speaking tasks about culture and aesthetics.
So, can you describe a piece of art or creative work that you found particularly impressive?
One time, I saw a documentary about jazz musician Miles Davis that showed his creative process in the recording studio. What impressed me was how he encouraged his musicians to experiment and take risks, even if it meant making mistakes.
How did his creative approach become so effective?
Davis created an environment where creativity could flourish by emphasizing exploration over perfection. He would give minimal direction, allowing musicians to interpret songs in their own unique ways, which led to innovative and spontaneous musical expressions. The documentary showed how great art often comes from collaboration, experimentation, and willingness to push beyond traditional boundaries.
That's a beautiful example of creative leadership and collaborative artistry. Can you describe your own creative process when you were playing guitar?
When I played guitar, I would start by learning basic chord progressions from songs I liked, then gradually experiment with different strumming patterns or simple variations. It was more about personal enjoyment than creating original music. The creative satisfaction came from making familiar songs sound slightly different through my own interpretation, even if the changes were small.
That's still a valid form of creative expression. What about your creative processes with visual art?
When I'm painting or sketching, I usually start with observation, looking carefully at subjects, lighting, and composition. Then I experiment with different techniques to capture what I see and feel.
How do you handle creative challenges or artistic frustration?
I've learned that creative blocks are normal parts of the artistic process. Sometimes stepping away from a project and returning later with fresh perspective helps. Other times, experimenting with new materials or techniques can spark inspiration. The key is understanding that creativity involves both success and failure, and both contribute to artistic growth and personal expression. Now let's learn vocabulary for cultural venues, events, and artistic experiences.
Cultural venues: museum, art gallery, concert hall, theater, opera house, cultural center, exhibition space, performance venue.
Cultural events: art exhibition, concert, festival, performance, opening night, cultural celebration, art fair, workshop, artist talk.
Cultural experiences: attend a performance, visit an exhibition, participate in workshops, meet artists, cultural tourism, artistic appreciation, aesthetic experience.
Let's practice describing cultural events and artistic experiences. This vocabulary is essential for IELTS speaking about places, events, and cultural activities.
Can you describe a memorable cultural event or artistic experience you've attended?
Last year, I attended an outdoor music festival that featured local and regional musicians. What made it special was the variety of musical styles and the community atmosphere.
What did you enjoy most about the festival experience?
I loved discovering new musicians I'd never heard before and seeing how different audiences responded to various musical genres. Some performances were intimate and acoustic, while others were energetic and dance-oriented. The festival also included food vendors, art displays, and interactive workshops where people could try different instruments. It was educational as well as entertaining.
That sounds like a wonderful combination of artistic appreciation and community engagement. What about museum or gallery experiences? I recently visited a contemporary art museum that featured works by emerging artists from different countries. Each artist used their work to comment on social and political issues in their home cultures.
How did the international perspective enhance your museum experience?
Seeing art from different cultural contexts helped me understand how artists use creative expression to communicate about universal themes like identity, community, and social justice, but through specific cultural lenses.
The museum also provided detailed artist statements and cultural context, which helped me appreciate techniques and symbolism I might have missed otherwise.
That kind of cultural education through art can be incredibly enriching and perspective broadening.
Now let's learn how to express opinions and preferences about art and creativity.
Expressing appreciation. I find it beautiful. It's visually striking. It moves me emotionally. I appreciate the technique. It's thought-provoking. The creativity is impressive.
Expressing preferences. I prefer traditional art. I'm drawn to abstract styles. I enjoy contemporary music. Classical art appeals to me. I find modern art challenging.
Constructive criticism. It's not to my taste. I don't understand the message. The technique seems unpolished. It lacks emotional impact. The style doesn't resonate with me.
Let's practice expressing artistic opinions and preferences. This type of discussion is very common in IELTS speaking tasks about culture and personal taste.
How do you typically respond when you encounter art that you don't immediately understand or appreciate?
I try to stay open-minded and ask questions like, what was the artist trying to communicate? Or what techniques did they use to create this effect? Sometimes understanding the context or intention helps me appreciate work that initially seemed confusing.
Do you think artistic appreciation can be learned, or is it purely personal preference?
I think it's a combination of both. Personal taste is individual, but learning about artistic techniques, historical context, and cultural significance can definitely enhance appreciation and understanding. For example, knowing about jazz history helps me understand why certain musicians are considered influential, even if their style isn't my personal favorite.
How do you discuss art with people who have different tastes or opinions?
I try to ask questions about what they appreciate rather than arguing about preferences. Questions like, what draws you to this style? Or, how does this work make you feel? Often lead to interesting conversations about different perspectives.
Do you think it's important to support local arts and cultural activities?
Absolutely. Local arts communities create cultural richness, provide educational opportunities, and often reflect unique regional characteristics that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Attending local performances, visiting community galleries, and participating in cultural events help sustain artistic communities and keep creative traditions alive. Now, let's learn vocabulary for discussing creativity in education and personal development.
Creativity in education. Arts education, creative thinking, artistic skills, cultural literacy, aesthetic appreciation, creative problem solving, artistic expression.
Personal creativity, creative hobbies, artistic development, creative outlets, personal expression, creative fulfillment, artistic growth, creative confidence.
Creative benefits, stress relief, self-expression, cultural understanding, cognitive development, emotional processing, social connection, personal satisfaction. Let's practice discussing the role of creativity in education and personal development. These topics are common in IELTS writing and speaking tasks about education and society.
Do you think arts education is important in schools, and why?
I believe arts education is crucial because it develops different types of intelligence and skills that traditional academic subjects don't always address. Creative activities teach students to think flexibly, express themselves, and appreciate different perspectives.
How do you think arts education benefits students beyond artistic skills?
Arts education can improve communication skills, boost confidence, and provide emotional outlets for students who might struggle with traditional academic subjects. It also teaches cultural appreciation and helps students understand diverse forms of human expression. Creative activities also encourage collaboration, problem solving, and persistence, skills that are valuable in any career or life situation.
What role do creative activities play in adult life and personal well-being?
Creative hobbies provide stress relief, personal satisfaction, and opportunities for continuous learning throughout life. They can also create social connections through classes, clubs, or community events.
Do you think everyone has creative potential, or is artistic ability limited to certain people?
I believe everyone has creative potential, though it might manifest differently. Some people are naturally drawn to visual arts, others to music, writing, or even creative problem solving in their professional work. The key is providing opportunities for people to explore different forms of creative expression and finding what resonates with each individual.
Now, let's review everything we learned today. We covered different art forms and creative media, artistic techniques and creative processes, cultural venues and events, expressing artistic opinions, and creativity in education and personal development.
We learned essential vocabulary for discussing visual arts, performing arts, literary arts, cultural experiences, artistic appreciation, and the role of creativity in society.
Remember, art and creativity vocabulary is incredibly valuable for IELTS speaking and writing tasks about culture, hobbies, education, and personal interests.
Plus, it enriches your ability to discuss aesthetic and cultural topics. This vocabulary connects to our previous lessons too. Art and creativity influence cultural traditions, entertainment choices, educational approaches, travel experiences, and personal expression in all aspects of life.
Practice tip. This week, try visiting a local cultural venue or engaging in a creative activity, and then describe your experience using today's vocabulary. Focus on expressing your personal reactions and observations.
For IELTS preparation, practice answering common art and culture questions like, describe a cultural event you attended, or do you think art education is important?
You can also practice expressing preferences and giving reasons for your artistic tastes using the opinion vocabulary we learned today.
Before we finish today, we have your homework assignment.
Tell us about your creative experiences or artistic interests in the comments. Use the vocabulary we learned today.
For example, you could write, I enjoy photography because it helps me appreciate beautiful details in everyday life. I prefer landscape photography to portraits because natural scenes inspire me and provide stress relief.
Or, I recently attended a traditional music concert that featured instruments from my culture. The performance was emotionally moving and helped me feel connected to my heritage.
Challenge. This week, try engaging with one new form of art or creative activity and describe your experience using today's artistic vocabulary.
Tomorrow, we'll explore history and traditions, essential vocabulary for discussing historical events, cultural heritage, and how traditions shape modern society.
Thank you so much for learning with us today. Please subscribe to English After Hours, like this video, and share it with your friends who are learning English.
Remember, we upload new lessons every day, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Keep practicing, keep creating, and we'll see you tomorrow for another essential English lesson.
Goodbye from English After Hours.
Bye, everyone.